now I'm going to go ahead and introduce to you our next presenter, who is Melanie Lachman. Melanie serves as the UPSLIDE program coordinator for the Tallahassee Senior Center, where she helps to connect older adults with activities and programs at the Senior Center and in the community with the goal of enhancing mental, emotional, and physical health. Melanie has over 20 years of experience as a licensed clinical social worker, doing both individual and group counseling, as well as community outreach. She loves spreading the word about UPSLIDE and has a special interest in trauma-related disorders and is trained in EMDR. She came to the Senior Center from the Big Bend Hospice, where she worked for 14 years as a grief counselor in Wakulla and Franklin counties. And then prior to that, Melanie worked as a substance abuse counselor with women and at-risk youth at Disc Village. So Melanie, I am going to turn things over to you.
Well, thank you. And I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. All right, let's see. All right, well, thank you so much for that introduction. And so that was a perfect segue. Our little sponsor commercial there was a perfect segue to my presentation today. So I am indeed Melanie Lachman. I'm the UPSLIDE program coordinator, and I'm going to talk to you today about how UPSLIDE reduces social isolation and enhances overall health. So as Tracetta said, we are utilizing and promoting social engagement for loneliness, isolation, and depression with the elderly. You already heard that it's really not the elderly, it's really older adults, anybody 50 and older. UPSLIDE has the honor of having won an award from the National Institute of Senior Centers last year. We won first place in the health and wellness category. And we are now really a 3-year plus program. So the program started out, we received a 3-year grant from the Florida Blue Foundation, and that got us started. We have since gotten some extra funding from FSU's College of Medicine, and we've gotten some CARES Act money as well. So we are hoping to keep chugging along, always looking for more funding sources. So I just wanted to throw that out there to you. So why UPSLIDE? So certainly we are all aware now in the situation that we're in that everybody, all of us, are more isolated and perhaps more lonely. But loneliness and isolation were recognized as being a public health crisis before we even knew what COVID-19 was. And this was really also worldwide. In fact, in 2017, the UK appointed someone to be the Minister of Loneliness to combat the problem there. So very much a problem beforehand, and over 8 million Americans, according to AARP, are affected. That's a pre-COVID number. A lot of research has come out and has taught us about the adverse physical, emotional, and mental health effects of being lonely and isolated, and I'll touch a little bit on those in a moment. We also know that staying socially connected not only enhances our quality of life, but also our quantity of life. We live longer the more socially connected we are. From a senior center perspective, the reason UPSLIDE came to be, the reason the grant was written to Florida Blue was because we basically had some participants ask us for it, in essence. We had people who were very active participants in our programs who came to us and said, this is wonderful and I love it here, but still lonely. Is there something that you can do? So it just happened that we had an occupational therapy assistant intern at the time, and she was set the task of doing a 6-week group. It was decided to just call it what it was, a group for people who might be lonely. And lo and behold, it turned out that the first week there were like 5 or 6 people who came. By the end of the 6 weeks, there were over 20 people. So that's when that we know there's a need. And so that's how UPSLIDE came to be. So why does this matter? So I talked about the adverse health risks. So first of all, let me say that sadly, this is not an all-inclusive list. So there are many things that are exacerbated by loneliness and isolation or caused by loneliness and isolation. So research has shown that there's a 20% increased chance of dying early for folks who are lonely and isolated. And a 2018 FSU study showed that the risk of dementia goes up by 40% when people are lonely and isolated. So indeed, it is a very important thing if you're looking at longevity and whole health to look after that part of your health. So I'm not going to read the rest of them because you can see them, but this shows you how serious it is. One thing I will say, when you read articles on loneliness and isolation, you will almost always see the quote that the physical effects are equivalent to smoking 15 cigarettes a day. So I think that gives you a pretty poignant picture of the effects. So there are a lot of ways that loneliness happens. And again, this list is not all inclusive, and it's also most often not just one thing, of course. These things are going to come together in some way, shape, or form to create the situation where somebody is feeling lonely and isolated. So things like hearing loss, because hearing loss is very common and hearing aids are often not covered by insurance. If you can't hear, you can't be part of a conversation, you're likely going to withdraw and isolate from being socially active. When people retire, a lot of times people go into that thinking, it's a big vacation, this is going to be great. But maybe they hadn't thought about how they're going to get their social engagement, right? When you work, you're normally, in normal circumstances, most of the time, you're going to be with people 8 hours a day. Whereas when you're retired, you have to make it happen. It's not just going to happen. And I've received several phone calls from people who have said, oh, I've hit the retirement wall and I need to figure out how to be with people. And I put relocation together with retirement because those things often happen together. So when that happens, you're really starting from scratch in terms of social engagement. So caregiving, you will note that I put that in bold there. And I'm sure many of you know already that caregiving can often be an inherently lonely business. And the longer you are a caregiver, the lonelier it gets. As the needs of the person you're caring for get greater, often your world will get smaller. So oftentimes people will get to the point where maybe they're only getting out to go to the doctor or to the pharmacy or to the grocery store, or maybe they have some help from somebody who lets them go to church or something like that. And we do indeed have a number of caregivers who come to us, and UPSLIDE is the way that they are getting their social fix, if you will. Well, I would be remiss, of course, if I did not recognize COVID-19 as being a source of loneliness and isolation today. So certainly for folks who were already feeling that way, it's made it worse. And for people who are very much active, perhaps coming to the senior center and things like that, it has put folks into a position where it's difficult for them to be socially engaged. So UPSLIDE is a program of the Tallahassee Senior Center, and it's the perfect place for it. We are a unique 26,000 square foot facility. Many of you may recognize it as the old Armory building. Many of you perhaps have gone roller skating as a child. If you're a local Tallahassean, that is where we are. We have been the leading senior focused facility for a very long time, since 1978. In normal circumstances, we have over 180 programs and activities to choose from. And that will be important when I talk a little more about UPSLIDE in a moment. Over 15,000 people walk through our doors normally, under normal times, every year. We have also 13 outreach sites in Leon County and in more rural settings. And we have a new center, a second center, coming soon in the Canopy development. So be looking for that. So what UPSLIDE does, UPSLIDE's mission of promoting social engagement marries in beautifully with our mission at the Senior Center, where all of our programs have some social component. And the goal is active living, optimal aging, and right there in our mission, social fitness. So like I said, it just couldn't be, there couldn't be a better setting. So just to give you a little taste of the 180 activities and programs, these are sort of just the general headings under which they come. So this is just the tiniest taste, I promise you. We have all sorts of art classes. We have art that is done by our art students hanging all throughout the building. We have all the types of dance. We have ballet, we have line dancing, we have contra dancing, we have round dancing and square dancing and ballroom dancing, all the shapes of dancing, all the dancing. Education comes in various flavors as well. You can learn French and you can learn Spanish and you can learn German at the Senior Center. You can learn how to use technology better. We have a huge array of health and wellness programs, and the UPSLIDE program comes under the health and wellness program at the Senior Center. Can't even there, I can do 3 slides on health and wellness alone. We also have our lifelong learning program, which is field trips and lectures on literally any topic you can think of. We have fitness, we have certified programs like Ageless Grace and Brain Body Balance and Life Exercise. We have Tai Chi, yoga, Zumba, again, kind of you name it. We have senior singers and a ukulele group and a guitar group. For recreation, there's table tennis, there's pickleball, there's bridge and mahjong and crafts and all sorts of things like that. We have a resource coordinator who gathers all the resources that we have in town under various different headings so that when people call looking for things to help them, we can get them there. And many services, like we have health and wellness and things like that that we offer as well. So part of what I do at UPSLIDE, what we do at UPSLIDE, is we pair people with activities. And so chances are there's going to be something at the Senior Center. And if we can't find it with us, we're going to look in the community to see what we can do. So every single person, whoops, my apologies, every single person who works at the Senior Center, staff and volunteer-wise, help make it happen. But we also, I just kind of wanted to introduce you to the UPSLIDE team. So it's Ruth Nickens, who's the Health and Wellness Coordinator, and UPSLIDE was her idea, really. And she and Lori Koberger, who's now retired, who you see down here in this picture of us together right before quarantine happened, they wrote the grant. Apologies again. They wrote the grant together to make it happen. I'm the program coordinator. Nicolette, who many of you heard speak this morning, is our program counselor, and Judy Shipman is our program assistant. So that's the UPSLIDE team. So what we are trying to do with UPSLIDE is to break this cycle. It's often hard to bump people out of it if they've been in it a long time, and everything in the cycle kind of feeds on every other thing. So when people are isolated, they become lonely. When you're lonely, you might become depressed. And remember, there's that chance of the 40% increased chance of dementia, of some cognitive decline. People might lose some ability to do ADLs and things like that, which leads to physical decline. Let's say you fall. Let's say you've fallen in public or something like that. You might now be really anxious about going out, right? And so the cycle just repeats and repeats and repeats. And so our goal is to break this cycle. And there's numerous ways we do this. I'll kind of talk about the under normal circumstances before COVID and kind of what we're doing now. And keep in mind we're getting an eye towards maybe getting something like normal happening again. We just don't know when. So we receive referrals. We do a lot of outreach. I do a lot of presentations such as I'm doing now. Referrals come from people themselves. And I want to say most often, it's the person who wants to have more social engagement who is calling and reaching out to us. But of course, we partner with and receive referrals from elder care services and the Alzheimer's Project and Ability First and just all the human service agencies and people who particularly work with older adults. During normal times, able to do assessment visits at somebody's home in a non-threatening way, learn what's going on with them, learn what their needs are, and again, in their own home, can tell them about UPSLIDE and how UPSLIDE might be able to help. If folks have difficulty with transportation, we can help with that as well. We have an Uber Health account set up. We have free dollar ride tokens and bus passes. I can assist folks with certifying that dial-a-ride application because a nurse or a physical therapist and somebody else and a licensed clinical social worker are needed to certify those applications. So I can help with that. We have individual counseling, which I'll talk about in a moment, our friendly chat groups. Trips and outings are something that we were just beginning to get started when COVID hit, and we're hoping to get back to doing that again. This photograph you see here was taken at the Gulf Marine Specimen Lab. That's a horseshoe crab that she's holding there. And those were so beloved and popular, and we're hoping to get back to doing those again. We provide those resources I talked about. For many folks, you can't concentrate on the job of being more socially engaged if, for example, maybe you don't have a primary care physician or you're having trouble paying your rent or your light bill. So those things have to be tended to first, and we're going to help you tend to them so that we can get you more active. Support and follow up. So we're not just going to say, here are the 180 activities and programs. Here are the things going on in Tallahassee. We're going to help you however we can to be comfortable starting doing those activities. So that could just look like a phone call. How's it going? How did it go? It could be introducing you to the instructor of a class or program, going with you to observe it, having someone go with you the first time, sit with you a little while, whatever it is, to make it more comfortable, because it can be really daunting to do something for the first time, particularly if it's been a while since you've been out and about. So we try to make it as easy as possible. And again, like I said, we'll sit down with you to figure out, well, is there something you've always wanted to do? Is there something you've had to give up? How can we help? Here's the 180 things that we got going on. Take a look and how can we help you do the things you wanted to do? So how we're doing now is, like so many people, as we're doing now virtually here with this conference, we've shifted our services to being either virtually over the web or over the phone. So our individual counseling, for example, virtual over the phone, our Friends Connection groups are Zoom, but you can also join them over the phone. We've got a Facebook group so that the UPSLIDE participants can touch base when UPSLIDE, the Friends Connection isn't happening. And of course, we're keeping just in touch over the phone. There are folks who've not been able to join us virtually, but we keep in touch with them. We're calling them, we're checking in with them, we're making sure everything's going all right. And the Senior Center in general has been doing that. We've been making phone calls this whole year to our active participants, just to kind of touch base and make sure they know that we are indeed still here for them. So we also provide, so there was transportation assistance before COVID, now it's technology assistance. So we have a group of volunteers who can help folks with Zoom, with their tablet and their computer and their phone. A lot of people are getting smartphones, for example, for the first time now because of COVID, and they don't know how to use them. So we will help them with that. We have our tablet loan program where we've gotten 10 Amazon Kindle Fires from Advantage Aging Solutions to give to folks so they can join us virtually. And if they need the technology assistance, that is there. We have partnered with the FSU College of Nursing to start a buddy program whereby we match a nursing student and an older adult buddy for the duration of that student's nursing career, which is 2 years. And it's for companionship. It's to help the students learn the needs of older adults and the wisdom of older adults, and the needs in particular as to how that pertains to the medical community. It's also a great way for the students to practice some of the skills they're going to need. So they'll do medical histories and falls prevention and things like that. But it's really meant to be just what it says, a buddy. And that's open not just to UPSLIDE participants, that's open to anybody in the community. So keep that in mind, folks, because we need at least 60 new senior buddies, older adult buddies every semester to match up with the nursing students. So if that has your attention at all, let us know and we'll pair you with a buddy. We have heard nothing but wonderful things. Everybody's in love with their buddy. I have a buddy. I'm in love with my buddy. So it's just been a really, really wonderful thing that we've been able to offer during this time. Another thing that we've been doing is monthly drive-through lunches. So here's December, Nicolette playing Santa for us. So during these, we just had one today, as a matter of fact, and they're just, we love them as much as our participants do. We hand folks a catered lunch, a goodie bag with resources and goodies, and we get to chat and see each other for a little moment, even though we're, it's just half a face. But we get to lay eyes on each other and talk to each other for a moment. So that's been really wonderful. Okay, so the Friends Connection chat groups is honestly and truly where the magic happens. This is where most people come to UPSLIDE, how most people find us, and it's most of the UPSLIDE participants are also Friends Connection members. So we've got a group that meets Mondays and Thursdays. That's from the senior center. We've brought the groups that have had their locations and we've just brought them into the virtual realm. So the senior center groups, and we have a group at the Lincoln Neighborhood Center, which in person used to meet once a month and is now twice a month. And we had a group at the Miccosukee Community Center, which we're going to have to wait with that one because they don't have good connectivity out there. So we've been able to serve them through the drive-through lunches that the Leon County Senior Outreach Program of the Senior Center does. But this is just a great way for folks to meet new people, have engaging interaction, and it's an instant community of support. It really, we facilitate it, but it's truly just that because it's become a community of its own and taken on a life of its own in that way. And the members of the Friends Connection groups truly do take care of each other. So here's Latoya, who is the one who did the sort of the pilot Friends Connection group. I'll talk about our activities in a moment. This was a drumming circle that we were able to offer. And here's three ladies who gave me permission to share their photograph. They became fast friends, and this is them at one of our ice cream socials. And they met at the Friends Connection group. So what the Friends Connection group looks like, basically, is we do a check-in where we just literally just check in with all the members. And so people share the high points of their week, the low points of their week. And if someone has something wonderful to celebrate, then we celebrate it. If somebody's struggling, we support them. And it's just a beautiful thing to see. Let's say someone has shared that they're struggling. And maybe the next person shares that something wonderful has happened. But everybody celebrates the good things and everybody offers support when support is needed. We provide novel experiences, so think drumming circle, think field trips, think dulcimer workshop. Every activity that we do is trying to build relationships and have sharing. And we do this in a lot of different ways. It might be identifying meaningful life events. It might be showing us your most prized possession, your favorite photograph, coping skills for folks who do have depression or anxiety and things such as that, and just general everyday coping skills, looking at personal strengths. What have you got to bring to a friendship? What do you have to bring to the world? We try to be creative, we try to be varied, and we always try to have fun. The photograph that you see here, we did a series on social skills and small talk, because not everybody loves small talk. Not everybody is good at small talk. It is a skill that oftentimes has to be learned. Some people seem to just come to it. I kind of think most people don't. And so we talked about that a little bit. We also talked about the challenges of technology, like if you're starting up a friendship and it's via text, that can get kind of hairy sometimes. And what about things like social media and Facebook? So we talked about those things, but we do all sorts of things. And, there's sort of, pluses and minuses to both. We really do believe we're going to be keeping a virtual presence. So just kind of keep that in mind, because for some people that's easier, right? You don't need to travel. The group tends to be smaller when it's virtual. And for some people that's more comfortable. Also, sometimes just interacting virtually is more comfortable for folks, and that's okay. It also gives us the option for guest facilitators who don't live in Tallahassee. They can be out of state. We had someone do drumming with us from Tennessee. We're going to have a guest facilitator doing some things coming up. She's in St. Augustine. Couldn't really do that in normal times. So it's not such a terrible thing. The downsides, of course, are, it's a smaller group. What if you prefer the in-person and more gregarious setting? Well, then maybe in-person's for you. If technology is a little daunting, then maybe in-person's for you. Another sort of downside, if you will, is, we're on Zoom a lot lately, and sometimes that can be, we can get a little burnt out on that. But that's just for the individual to decide which might be best for them, what they prefer. So it's more options now. So for the individual counseling support, and there's no cost for this, provided by myself, I'm a licensed clinical social worker, and Nicolette Castagna, and she's a mental health counselor. So this is professional counseling. It's confidential. We assist people with managing depression and anxiety. We help them move through the process of getting more socially engaged and having meaningful activity. If they need resource referral, there's the relationship that people will develop with us. If you haven't had a lot of interaction lately with somebody, how important is it to have a person that you trust and that you're feeling comfortable with? Maybe, it's been a while and being with folks feels a little awkward, right? And there's also a lot of research that shows that in the counseling setting, it's the relationship with the counselor that makes things happen. And perhaps most importantly, what we do is we instill hope. Things can get better, things will get better, and we're going to help them get better to the best of our ability and walk you through that however we can. So I want for you to meet Nancy, not her real name, and this also is not a picture of Nancy because we are honoring her confidentiality. And Nancy is also kind of a combination of a couple of people. So I just want to throw that out there at the outset. So Nancy is 73 years old. She's been married for more than 50 years to her husband, who has dementia, and she is his primary care provider. So really the only social interaction before UPSLIDE that she had was with her husband and her children, who she did not see very often. And she just missed having full-on meaningful conversations with folks. Her husband had gotten to the point where having a full-on conversation was becoming rather difficult. And she felt guilty taking time for herself, felt guilty doing any kind of self-care, and really had a hard time asking for help, but was just getting to the point where she just was craving social interaction. And that's where she reached out to us. So she reached out to us. We told her about the Friends Connection group, and now she's there. She's there both days, twice a week. She has gotten in-home help and has gotten the family more on board, and she is a part of this core group of friends that she's met at the Friends Connection who reach out and support her whenever they can. And she has, like I said, this sense of community, that she belongs to something, and describes UPSLIDE as being life-changing. And we can truly see that it has been. You can just see the difference in her. So this might be the point where you're thinking, well, how does somebody become part of this? And it is not difficult at all. Really, you just have to have the desire for your social situation to be different, for it to be better, to want to engage more with people. When we're back up and running in normal times, our folks just have to be able to get to us safely and navigate safely, either independently or with assistance. Just like I said, wanting more social interaction and be over 50. And really all you have to do is call or email, and I will have my contact information at the last slide as well, so that you can see that. But we really try to make it as easy as possible. And I also do want to point out, the able to engage. We have had folks in the program, in the Friends Connection, who have had some cognitive decline. And it's been fine. As long as you're able to engage, totally fine. We had one participant who was with us and we kind of watched her change, but we got the sense that she recognized everybody and just loved being in the company of her friends. And so perfectly fine. As long as there's the ability to engage, we welcome everybody. So just to kind of give you an idea of where we are kind of numbers wise since the inception of the program, we've had over 360 participants. Since the beginning, the number goes up every day. Over 170 counseling clients, 280 Friends Connection participants. I told you that was the main thing. And of course, the numbers aren't going to add up because you can receive individual counseling and come to Friends Connection as well. Totally, totally fine. We have this beautiful diversity. We have had in the same room people in their 50s all the way up to people in their 90s. Various education levels. We've had people with no college education or very little education. We've had people with intellectual disabilities, all the way up through retired college professors. People from, from Egypt and India and Spain and Colombia and other countries whose names I am forgetting. In the same room, people who perhaps may not ever have met otherwise, like I said, coming together and forming this community of support. So more numbers, because we are grant funded and because we want to know how we're doing. We do ask folks every 3 months or so to give us a little feedback on their experience in the program. And 87% of participants feel physically and mentally healthier. The folks who have felt a little unsure about their social skills, 50% of them feel like their social skills have improved. 85% of folks have formed friendships. So outside of the group time, friendships. And 76% feel less isolated. So we are indeed doing what we have set out to do. So just wanted to also give you a little idea of what participants actually say about the program. So this first one here is a gentleman who's been largely an individual counseling client who has had just a lifelong history of depression, and that's what brought him to counseling. And as he says here, the counseling got him through a very dark time, and he is now talking about he's ready to graduate, doesn't need us anymore. That's kind of what we want to hear. And he is doing very well socially. We have a couple who has met and fallen in love through Friends Connection. So that's their feedback there. And here is a COVID times comment. And so this participant has a reason to get out of her pajamas when we have Friends Connection. And I do believe that that is indeed high praise, right? Because what are we wearing all day long? We're wearing our sweatpants and our pajamas. And so she looks forward to that. And I have seen her also become an active part of the Friends Connection community. So here's a question I get all the time. It's sort of the what's next question. So just generally, this is sort of a general senior center. We're looking at some outdoor activities at some point. We don't precisely know when. There will be the phased reopening of the center, where we will be able to, for example, begin to have Friends Connection again in a safe way. Like I said, we will be keeping the virtual options open for those whom that is the best option. And we will continue to look for ways to keep UPSLIDE going, because it is magical and has been magical, and we want to keep it going. So here's my contact information. I'll leave that there for you to take a look at. And I am open to any and all questions that you may have. And I'll leave that up there for just a moment, and then I'll stop sharing so that you can see me a little better. But I'll let you take a second to get the information down. All right, so I don't know if we have any questions. Let's see if I can.
We do have just a couple of questions. The first one, I believe you already answered when they were asking, are you open now, or how are these programs available? And I know if you want to kind of recap really quickly.
We are not open right now. I wish I could give you a date that we will be open. We do not know what that day will be. We are hoping it's fairly soon, and but yeah, we're still closed to the public, unfortunately, and doing everything virtually.
Okay. There was also a question from Carl Davis asking, can you learn Russian at the center?
When we closed, Russian was not one of the languages, but if we learn that there is a need or a desire for something, we'll kind of put out feelers and make it happen. So if you want to learn Russian, you can call and put in a word for that. When we closed, we were doing French and Spanish and German. I think we also had Chinese language classes in the past as well. So Russian is not outside of the realm of possibility.
All right, and we had another question from Philip Nowicki, and he asked, will the new senior center have adult care respite so that a caregiver can leave their loved one while they utilize the activities themselves?
That is an excellent question. I don't know that I 100% have the answer to that. I believe the answer is that is not planned at this moment, but we might be doing space sharing. So I don't know the 100% answer to that. And that as we get closer, we haven't broken ground yet. And so I would ask that question. I can try to get that answer for you, but I think the answer is that that's not quite in the works at the moment.
All right. We also have a question from Alex Colfin. Do you have any tips on introducing this program to an elderly parent who may benefit from this, but may not be the type of person to seek it out on their own? I second that question.
That is an excellent question. So yes, I agree. It sounds like the way you present it is important. So I'm happy to talk to folks. If so, in the in-person scenario, seeing if perhaps you can get them to come to the senior center and have a tour. We've done that. And sometimes with the tour, they get to see live and as it's happening, the activity. So that's often helpful. They're like, oh, I've always wanted to do this. Oh, that's what pickleball is. Oh, I didn't know you had mahjong. And right now, we also, with the virtual stuff, you can join the Zoom meeting with your parent. The buddy program, Ruth is pointing out, also a great place to start. It's a very non-threatening way to have your parent have that interaction with somebody, just one-on-one, and then it could be opened up maybe in a broader way. But we do have folks who, when we're doing virtual, for example, will either sit with their parent at the Zoom meeting or join it. Let's say you're not in the same city or the same state, just to provide that moral support. And we are always happy to talk about it and explain what it is. And we'll often go through with people, here's what to expect when you come to a Friends Connection meeting. This is what it's going to look like. This is how many people are going to be there. And I'm also happy to relay that information to you, as the child, so that you can, if it's more comfortable for your parent to have a more detailed picture, because it is, if you can't picture it, it's daunting and it can be anxiety provoking. But also I find that describing it as that community of support is often helpful, because people are like, what happens at one of these meetings? Is it therapy? And it's not, it's social engagement. It's this instant community of support. I hope that has answered your question. In short, there's a lot of ways. Get with us and we can brainstorm with you. Often often that answer is very individualized, depending on the situation that you're finding yourself in, or depending on what the concerns or the fears or the anxieties are.
She said that was very helpful. So thank you. If anyone else has any questions, we do have a little bit additional time here. Melanie finished just a tiny bit early, which is not a problem. Get us back on track schedule wise. But if you do have any additional questions, feel free to drop those in the Q&A section or in the chat box. I will grab those and make sure that we get those answered. It's always great to, I can just say I have been learning so much today about caring for my own parents and what is available here in our community and just kind of generally speaking. And so I appreciate you, Melanie, and all of the presenters who have taken part so far today. I know we have one more session here shortly. Okay, here we go. Here's another question. Are there any volunteer opportunities for the general public at the Senior Center?
Yes. We can't do what we do without volunteers. We have a great many volunteers. We have volunteer coordinators. So yes, the main Tallahassee Senior Center number, 891-4000. So if you're interested in volunteering, call. We've not been utilizing volunteers during COVID, but COVID is not going to last forever. And we will welcome having volunteers. We are having, for example, at the building now tax aid in a very limited way to folks who have had their taxes done before. And we're using our volunteers again for that. We cannot do what we do without them. So if you have a desire to volunteer with us, yes, please, 891-4000.
What type of role do you have for volunteers?
Oh my goodness. Volunteers man the front desk for us during normal times. They help with activities and programs. We use volunteers in health and wellness. We have folks who, retired nurses who do blood pressures and things like that. What else? Just about most of our programs in some way will use volunteers. All of our instructors are volunteers. Not all of them, a great many of them. So yeah, if you've got an expertise or something like that that you want to share with folks, if you just want to help out, we have data entry volunteers, all manner of things. For our Lifelong Outdoor Pursuits program, we've had volunteers being like hike leaders and things like that. So awesome. Get to volunteer and do the things you love at the same time.
Is there a minimum number of hours that people need to volunteer? What kind of commitment is there?
That's a great question. I don't know the answer to that. So that's another call, 891-4000 and ask that question. We don't have, like some organizations have, you have to go through an X number of hours training and an X number of hours commitment. I think we're more relaxed than that. So it's not, a certain number of hours that are required, I don't think.
Okay. Well, I don't see.
Ruth Nickens is confirming for me that there is no minimum needed at all.
All right.
Okay, so just come on down.
Well, I don't see any additional questions in the Q&A. So why don't we do this since we have a few minutes? Why don't we take a bio break? Because I'm sure after having lunch, you know, it's almost 3 o'clock. You get that afternoon, that 3 o'clock lull. So why don't we take a bio break, grab some water, go to the bathroom, stretch. Stretching is a really great way to get your the blood pumping and restore your energy. We'll get started again at 2:55. So you have about 10 minutes. So even if you want to step outside for a moment, get some sunshine. That's another way to boost your energy, because Zoom fatigue is real. That screen fatigue is real. So we're going to go ahead and take a 10-minute break, and we will be back at 2:55 for our final session. And I'll play some music for those of you who are just going to hang around.
Thank you, everybody.